The Permanent Peoples Tribunal, also known as the Rojava Tribunal, in Brussels exposes Turkey's alleged war crimes, including forced displacement, targeted femicides, and the destruction of Kurdish identity in northern Syria. 2 years after the 6th of February earthquakes, survivors in the affected regions are still living in dire conditions, facing government inaction and a lack of meaningful aid. Joe Kent, whose wife was killed fighting ISIS, takes office as US counter-terror chief while Turkey escalates attacks on Kurdish forces, raising speculation over the Trump administration's Kurdish relations. The French National Assembly recently revisited the country's alliance with Kurdish forces, with one MP calling for a no-fly zone over North and East Syria and sanctions on aggressors. Learn more with Medya News. The Permanent Peoples Tribunal, also known as Rojava Tribunal, on Turkey's actions in North and East Syria, held in Brussels, has attracted global attention. The first day, the 5th of February, focused on Turkey's systematic violations of international law, including ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, and attacks on civilians in Afrin. Testimonies from survivors and experts highlighted Turkey's military operations since 2018, in particular the forced displacement of over 120,000 Kurdish civilians, the use of banned weapons, and the targeting of vital infrastructure. Legal experts, including Ceren Uysal and Jan Furman, presented compelling evidence arguing that these actions constitute crimes against humanity under international law. On the second day, the 6th of February, the tribunal continued its examination of Turkey's human rights violations. This session focused on femicide, drone strikes, and the ongoing destruction of cultural heritage in northern Syria. Attorney Barbara Spinelli presented evidence linking Turkish-backed militias to the assassination of prominent Kurdish women leaders such as Hevrin Helef, claiming that these attacks were part of a strategy to undermine democratic governance in Rojava. Dr. Oriseus Christo provided documentation of the destruction of cultural sites, highlighting the deliberate attempt to erase Kurdish identity from the region. The Rojava People's Tribunal provides an essential platform for holding Turkey accountable for its actions in North and East Syria, particularly in light of its refusal to participate in formal international tribunals. The testimonies and evidence presented at the tribunal will undoubtedly shape the future of accountability for war crimes in the region, as the international community is urged to take action in response to these ongoing violations. 2 years after catastrophic earthquakes struck southeastern Turkey and northern Syria, survivors remain trapped in inadequate living conditions. The quakes, which measured 7.7 and 7.6 on the Richter scale, caused widespread destruction and left more than 50,000 people dead, with many still living in makeshift shelters. The aftermath has been marked by a lack of government response, with survivors still facing severe shortages of shelter, food, and healthcare. In the hardest-hit areas, such as Elbistan, many are living in container settlements or temporary shelters, exposed to extreme cold without adequate support. Despite these ongoing struggles, government agencies such as the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, or AFAD, have done little to help. Survivors, including those who spoke to Jin News, told harrowing personal stories of abandonment and unfulfilled promises. One survivor, Aishi Algash, described how she survived the earthquake, lost family members, and now lives in a self-made shelter with little outside help. "We didn't just survive the rubble, we survived the abandonment," she said, underlining the emotional and physical toll that government neglect continues to take on victims. On the second anniversary of the 6th of February 2023 earthquakes, survivors and advocates are calling for immediate action, accountability, and a clear plan from the government to address the ongoing humanitarian crisis. Joe Kent, a former Green Beret, CIA officer and Special Forces operative, has been appointed as the new director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center. Kent's career in counter-terrorism operations spans several years, notably in the Middle East, where he worked closely with Kurdish forces in their fight against ISIS. His appointment follows the tragic loss of his wife, Shannon Kent, a Navy Chief Petty Officer killed in a 2019 ISIS suicide bombing in Manbij, Syria. Kent's leadership is now being watched closely amid concerns about US relations with Kurdish forces, as Turkey increases its attacks on Kurdish-controlled areas in Syria. Kent's personal ties to the region, combined with his extensive counter-terrorism experience, raise questions about the future direction of US policy towards Kurdish forces and the ongoing fight against extremism. The French National Assembly recently revisited the country's alliance with Kurdish forces in Syria, as tensions persist in the region. During a debate, French MP Danielle Simony of the New Popular Front emphasized the ongoing importance of supporting the Kurdish-led autonomous administration of North and East Syria.
Madame la Présidente, ma question s'adresse au ministre des Affaires étrangères. Avec une délégation du nouveau Front populaire, nous nous sommes rendus à Kobané pour les 10 ans de la libération de la ville. Il y a 10 ans, toute la communauté internationale a salué le courage des Kurdes qui ont vaincu Daesh.
Simonet highlighted the city of Kobani, which marked the 10th anniversary of its liberation from ISIS, noting the pivotal role Kurdish forces have played in defeating the extremist group and managing prisons holding thousands of suspected fighters and their families.
La Turquie d'Erdogan doit cesser ses offensives contraires au droit international, remettant en cause les frontières de la Syrie. Il faut exiger une no-fly zone, un cessez-le-feu, des sanctions. Jinjian Azadi.
Merci beaucoup.
The MP also voiced concerns over security threats posed by militias backed by neighbouring powers and urged the French government to push for a no-fly zone and stronger sanctions against those violating Syria's borders. She cautioned that Kurdish communities, especially women, might be excluded from future military and political roles under Syria's transitional authorities, despite their key contributions.
Les Kurdes sont nos alliés fidèles, ce sont nos frères d'armes et nous ne les abandonnerons pas.
In response, French Minister Barrot reaffirmed France's commitment to protecting Kurdish communities, calling them loyal allies in the fight against terrorism. He also announced that Kurdish representatives would be included in an upcoming Syria conference in Paris, reinforcing France's diplomatic efforts in supporting Kurdish autonomy and inclusion in Syria's future governance.